And welcome everybody to the penultimate event for this season. We're doing two races at once here, 19 and 20, Mexico and Brazil. And we've just to start off, we've got shocking news for everybody. Lewis Hamilton is a 5 times world champion of Formula One. Unbelievable. Breaking news, everybody. Yeah, fantastic news. What do you say to that, Fabio?
I don't know. The news just got in, so I'm surprised.
Yeah, I know it's a shock, but nonetheless, I think Lewis deserves it this year. He's been really consistent. He's been mistake free virtually, and for that he does deserve the title of world champion for being the most consistent driver.
And he was also lucky, which it's a good thing. I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm saying in a good way.
Good, yes. I mean, lucky is definitely one of the qualities you need in life if you're going to be successful. So yeah, I would agree. He has been lucky in
No,
that.
it's a good thing when you're lucky and you grasp the occasions. So that's a positive thing in my book. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has won championships before with less than the very best car, but nonetheless, I think the Mercedes has been just a smidge worse than the Ferrari this year. So
yes, I agree.
In some sense, Sebastian threw the title away, but he was up against hard opposition, and obviously he needed to reach a very high level to claim the title himself. Which
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. So, I agree on the car comment that you made. One of the things I found fascinating in the Mexican Grand Prix, the race before the last one, was that in the very same race that Lewis won the Drivers' Championship, Bottas was lapped in the same car.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, what the fuck? Come on, really, Jesus Christ! So there was something really weird with that car. Not with Lewis, but with the car overall. I'm a little bit more stingy that they lost the manufacturer championship, that Ferrari lost the manufacturer championship rather than the drivers one. The drivers one was all on Lewis. We said that before. We had our differences, but I think that we all agree that we always said that he was a very consistent, good, and lucky driver in this season. So there is no doubt about it. But the car, I still got some doubts about it. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just to fill everybody in that doesn't realize, also Mercedes this race in that is Brazil won the constructors title for 2018, and well deserved. Ferrari just haven't been on the ball. They've made too many mistakes this year, and that's what I put it down to. So I'm thrilled by this news because to be perfectly honest, it sets next year up as a cracking year. I mean, we've just so much to look forward to. Let's just briefly go over the races. Mexico. Well, Lewis did everything he just needed to do to win the title effectively, and I think that was the story of the race. What did you think, Fabio?
Mexico. I think the race was really bad. I mean, it was the cars were slow.
Yeah.
In the race, they were very slow. And that happened. The same thing happened in the following race. If you look at the times they did in qualifying and the times they were making on the race, that was appalling.
Yeah.
But the good thing about Brazil was that they came really close. From the first to the fourth, I think there were 5 seconds, so they were really close. But both races were really bad races. I mean, the pace was really slow. So yeah, there was that. But
yeah, do we think that the reason for that is the tires, or are we saying there's something else going on?
Yeah, I think there were the tires for different reasons, but there were. I mean, the tires are to blame, of course, they are to blame, and it's the same thing all over the year. It's just that that there is a mix of stupidity from the FIA, the whole thing about the tires is bizarre. They are forced to make 2 changes with different tires. It's really weird.
It is weird. Someone was saying that the tire pressures were up at like 23, 24. Right now, we're used to the teams wanting, right? The teams would like 16, 15, 16 pounds per square inch, not 24, right? 24 is a huge high number. I can't remember when they last had to run tires that stiff. So I'm not surprised. They're doing it to protect their reputation, presumably, because their tires aren't working for whatever reason.
It's for safety reasons too. There is that too. So because at the beginning of the race they issue some recommendations on when you got to change the tires and all that, but it's not mandatory. So you have to on the safe side. And that I understand. I still maintain that this is a better way. I mean, it's still better than having 2 manufacturers.
Right. Okay. I don't understand it myself because, as I said, there are unprecedented tire pressures, and we know high tire pressures are really much more difficult to manage and puts the car on a knife edge of setup, or at least performance. So I don't understand it. As far as I'm concerned, when Pirelli had to do this, and when Goodyear had to do this in the past, it was an admission that the tires weren't good enough for the formula.
I think it's well, as far as the setup goes, it depends a lot on the cars. If you have 2 manufacturers, you can make a tire which suits the car. That happened with Ferrari and Bridgestone the first year they came in. And the following years, they were making tires specifically for the car. Yeah. And that's a different approach. But if you've got to make a tire for all the cars, I can't really blame the tires itself for the performances. It's up to every manufacturer. Take a case in point, for example, Mexico too, but Brazil was really astonishing on that thing. The Mercedes, which, by the way, I just throw in that here, ever since Spa, they haven't raced with the modified rims.
Yeah,
they had huge problems with the tires. Only the Mercedes, they had blister on the front left tire in Brazil, which was unheard of. Ferrari was okay. The amazing thing was that Red Bull managed to race with softer compounds and have no problems at all with the tires.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to say, the tires are at fault when you have 3 different manufacturers behaving in different ways with the tires.
Sure. I would expect them to behave in different ways. What I wouldn't expect is the top 2 teams to blister the tires the way they have for the last 2 or 3 races. So for me, this is not something to do with the teams not optimizing. This is to do with the tires, changing their characteristic through the year, which I don't like. Should they be doing it? I guess there was a problem early on in that, Ferrari looked to be going to run away with the title if the tires hadn't been changed. So it's silly of me to complain about it in some ways because obviously Mercedes took advantage of it. But I still say that I don't like these changes. Mercedes should have been forced to change their car to deal with it. And I think they did find a solution, but obviously the solution was deemed potentially illegal. So they reviewed.
That was
pragmatic grounds. Go ahead.
That was a very weird thing. I'm not passing any judgment, but I made notes about it because it was really weird, and those notes are from the Mexico race. Basically, what happened is that Mercedes from Spa, before Spa, they started having different rims. They have holes drilled in the center, and so there were. I'm trying to find a word which is not a complaint, because that opens a whole new scenario. But they were inquiring to the FIA if that solution was okay. It's important to point out that there was no formal protest by anybody. And that's historically because ever since I think Jean Todt was in Ferrari, teams do not make protests, but they ask for explanations to FIA. And the FIA replies, and regardless of the reply, this wouldn't stop the fact that a formal protest can be done. And by the way, that's what happened with Renault and Haas. For the bottom in Monza, Haas has been fined and the points have been taken away because Renault had made a formal protest to FIA. And believe it or not, that is something which hasn't happened ever since before Jean Todt was in Ferrari. Jean Todt basically was the first guy to say, okay, let's not make protests, let's ask for information, let's keep it on a more gentleman level. So some teams asked for explanation to FIA, not only Ferrari, there were several teams. And Tom Basic, the guy in the FIA, said that they were okay, and they were not like what Red Bull did in 2012. That was a whole different thing. They had a hollow spindle in the rear, and that was very different. What is really interesting is that after Tom Basic said they were okay, Mercedes asked again to the stewards if they were okay. So that was really weird, and I don't think anybody was really sure about it. But lo and behold, Mercedes, since Spa, they stopped. Since I think Austin, they stopped with those rims. Austin was I think it was the last race that they had the holes in there. So that was really weird. And again, I think this is another. We should talk about it. This should be another chapter of how bad the FIA has behaved through all these years. I think it was really inconsistent. It was childish that way. And just to go back to what we're talking about, to get it a little more recent, I mean, we can only see what has happened in Brazil this weekend. They made some decisions which were really, I mean, I don't know. I read how they justified that, and it makes me giggle. It's insane.
Okay. So, I think Mercedes have done a blinder on this one, because I think the FIA, if they were taken to court over this, would lose. Right? As far as I'm concerned, this wheel rim is an aero part, and it is movable. So technically, it does break the rules. And for that reason, I think Mercedes didn't want to risk it. I think they were being sucked in by the FIA to say, well, we're probably not going to rule on this. And then they probably wouldn't rule on it because, it's against Pirelli, and that's the only tyre manufacturer. But Ferrari could well have taken them to court, in which case it's a whole new ball game, and they've got to go by the letter of the law. And the letter of the law says it's aero parts which are movable are banned. We had this back in, what was it? Somewhere around
2012, Red Bull.
Right. Okay. I was the Red Bull. Slightly different. I was thinking about wheel parts.
Oh, aero. Red Bull in 2012. I don't know what you're referring to, but I remember in 2012, Red Bull had a hollow.
For sure.
Yeah,
100%. That was done specifically for outwash.
Yes,
it was specifically an aero part. The thing I was referring to with the front wheel covers that Ferrari developed in about 97, 98, somewhere around there.
Oh yeah.
And it was deemed to be legal because it was decided it wasn't an aero part. But once in that particular case, halfway through the season, the FAA were challenged on it and told that they were being taken to court. And lo and behold, they came up with a new ruling which said everybody can have them till the end of the year, and they would be banned next year.
Yes.
Now, I think this led to the problems with Rod Dennis, because he didn't take it sitting down, did he?
Yeah.
He decided to prove that they were in fact an aero part and that there was aero advantage. You know, I don't think just because the FAI rule on something, that is necessarily how it goes. And you know, I think it's the politics of it got involved in this year.
No, it's because the way that things have been done recently, in recent years.
Yeah, okay. I'll accept that.
I mean, before, if you think that your competitor was doing something wrong, you made a formal protest to FIA. So FIA had to rule on the topic, period. And when they rule, they might rule right, wrong, but it's a change in the rules.
Yeah.
But in recent years, and still, I maintain it that this whole scenario started with when Jean Todt was in Ferrari. So I think 99, 98, stuff like that. There was a new trend in F1. So basically, no major no major team was making formal protests, but rather they were asking to FIA for some clarifications.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's a more gentleman way to do things, you know, because, you know, you clarify things and you say, well, we think it might be wrong, and you stop doing that. It's okay, you know. It's more a little bit more open, and it doesn't have you know, repercussions on the championship, like again what Renault did with us. You know, Renault complained about the bottom of the ass. They say that they didn't have time. It was, you know, in the summer vacations, the factory didn't have time to make the parts, which was kind of bullshit. But they run with that. And in Monza, they made a formal protest. Renault made a formal protest. Of course, Renault made because, you know, they had all the interest of overtaking them in the championship points.
Indeed.
So, but that, I think that was one of the, I can't remember ever since 99 where there was a formal protest which led to points being taken away retroactively, you know, on the back. So,
maybe not. I can't remember either offhand. It's too many years and too many dodgy decisions being made. But nonetheless, okay. So Mexico was a boring race. Brazil, was that an interesting race for you?
Brazil was well. The race in itself was, you know, the same race in Mexico. I mean, the cars were slow. It was a little bit more interesting, mostly because of the ballsy decision that, you know, Ferrari made in the qualifying of trying to, in Q2, to go with the yellow tires. So they had this mix up at the start. So from the beginning, there was a little bit more interest in the race because you knew that there were different strategies. Of course, there were different strategies. The race was way more closer. And then, of course, Ocon, you know, decided to spice it up a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, from the viewing point, it was way more interesting because it was way closer.
Yeah. So, well, you know, I mean, way closer. Again, I mean, with this blistering tires, etc., it's clear that the top two teams, Ferrari and Mercedes, have slowed down. That they've taken a hit over whatever remedies they had for cooling the tires. Whereas, you know, it appears that Red Bull haven't had to do that.
Well, Mercedes more than Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari, I think, was out of pace.
Agreed. This is in comparison to Red Bull, though.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, Red Bull made a huge leap. That's right. Ferrari-wise, I think Vettel had a problem with the car. He had a faulty sensor from the start, from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so that apparently was problematic in the management of the car. Kimi made the race that he had to do.
As usual.
As usual. I mean, very consistent. He has made more points than Vettel in the last races. And Max was brilliant. Ricciardo made two of the best overtakes in the race. one with Vettel at the first lap that he tried. Vettel tried, pulled him a little bit outside the track, so he had to go back. And the following lap, he made a fantastic overtake on Vettel, and he also made an amazing overtake on Bottas too. So kudos to Ricciardo. Made a very good race. I was waiting for his engine to break down every moment, but it didn't. So
because he wasn't ahead of Verstappen.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that. You're right. You're right.
And what do we think about the most controversial issue in the race, as far as I was concerned, which was Ocon and Verstappen?
Well, I think Ocon is a blithering idiot. I mean, I don't know.
Really?
I don't know what else to say. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking.
Yeah, I know what he was thinking. He was thinking, get this slow Dutchman out of my way.
Well, okay, there is a funny thing about Ocon and Verstappen. We had a TV show here in Italy after the race on Sky, and Matteo Bobbi, which was a 2 times GT champion, is a very nice guy, and he got a tweet from Jarno Trulli on the show. And basically, that was a retweet from a guy, I can't remember the name, but it was a guy which used to manufacture go-karts. And the tweet was about Ocon and Verstappen when they were racing karts. And he was recounting an episode where Ocon, they were both racing karts, Ocon and Verstappen, at the same time. And Ocon crashed into Max. And race 2, Max deliberately crashed into Ocon. So after the race, the Ocon parents came to the team and asked, what the fuck has happened, and blah 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 blah. And apparently, just Verstappen asked why Ocon didn't say sorry before. So this is something which goes back to karts with those two guys.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And well, I mean, I have a different view on this because, the cars are different how they used to be in the past, where, the leading cars were always going to be the fastest, etc., etc. These days, with the tire differences, with the split between the tires being more extreme than they've ever been, and with different rules about, fuel saving, etc., etc., it's very possible now that one of the backmarking cars can go faster.
Well, no, it is possible. It is possible, but let me put it this way: Ocon was trying it was lapped already, so it was trying to go ahead, and it's okay. He can do that. There is nothing against that.
Absolutely.
He pushed to the corner, and he didn't go in front of Max. So first corner on the left, he was slightly behind, and then the second corner, Max had Ocon on his right, but he wasn't ahead of him, so he had right of way. There is also a very interesting shot from TV, I think from Ocon car, where it clearly it shows, and it's very far, and I understand that it's very difficult for a driver to see, but it's there. There was the blue flashing light telling Ocon to get the fuck out of there.
Right.
I mean, regardless, it's insane. It doesn't make any difference.
Okay. Well, they shouldn't have had blue lights. That's the number one thing, because Verstappen was ahead, so there should be no blue flags. And I don't think so. I think with the speed differences of the cars this day, that Verstappen made a tactical error there. He turned across what potentially. I mean, he's got the most to lose, right? Regardless of the rights and wrongs, Ocon's car was in the way, and he should have known Ocon's car was in the way.
I agree. Oh, sorry.
Plus, if he'd had this history with Ocon in karting, then he would know that Ocon was not going to back out of it, and that in fact Ocon had nothing to lose because he didn't have a drive at Force India next year. So I just think tactically this is another Verstappen learning experience.
Well, listen, if that Verstappen had nothing to lose, you're right. The thing is that
Ocon.
that Verstappen had a lot to lose. That's what I meant to say.
Sure.
You're right. The thing is that if you ask any racing driver, anybody, okay, and I'll tell you later what Jacques Villeneuve told about it.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, if you ask any racing driver, they will reply to you that Ocon had no business of being there in that moment. If you ever, I mean,
it's different now. It's different nowadays. The car different.
No. But listen, I mean, Force India it was faster than Red Bull on the straight. It's because Force India is one of the fastest car on the straight. You have a straight portion just ahead where you can open the DRS, and you are lapped. It doesn't make any fucking sense, right? After the race, they asked Jacques Villeneuve, because there was after the race, Max went to Ocon and pushed him a little bit. They say, well, and by the way, Ocon said, yeah, he pushed me, he tried to punch me. That's what Ocon said.
Well,
which is not true.
Come on, now look, come on, let's just get this straight. Yes, it was definitely handbags at dawn. All right. It always is, even when you go back, right?
Right.
Drivers just can't fight for shit.
No, well, I've got some. I've got a couple of.
Okay, go ahead.
But anyway, that's what Ocon said. So, yeah, he tried to punch me, and then people got in the middle. Then I saw the video, said that this is not what happened. But anyway, when they asked Jacques Villeneuve, apparently he tried to punch him in the face, and Jacques replied, "Okay, did he got him?" I said, "No." Well, I mean, I would have got him.
Well, look, I can understand Max's frustration here. I just think Max made the mistake here, not Ocon. Ocon was he'd only been out of the pits for one lap. He'd stayed behind for that lap, presumably checking his the possibilities. And granted, in the corners, even with the tire differential, the Red Bull was still fast, so it was never going to be easy. But as I say, I think for me, this is a learning experience. I remember Hamilton crashing in the pit entries of the pit lane at someone like Malaysia. I can't remember. Anyway, he threw away the world title by it. Not threw it away, but potentially he lost the world title because of that and other incidents, obviously. And it was a huge learning experience. He's never made those mistakes again. He's never been careless on track again in the same way that he was there. And Max is still being careless on track. So I'm.
No, I agree with you. I mean, some other driver would not have made the same mistake when Max was there. I don't think that gives away the fact that Ocon was an asshole. There are some unwritten rules, and I'm saying that on purpose because there is another thing I want to talk about. There are some unwritten rules that if you want to overtake the leader because you're lapped already, you do that in the safest possible way. You don't try to destroy that, and those are unwritten rules. And talking about unwritten rules, there is some other incident. And I agree with you. Unwritten rules are laughable, okay? But they're there. So we either accept them or we think they're stupid. Because there was another thing involving unwritten rules and this weekend, which I think they were laughable. And mostly because those unwritten rules were written on an FIA statement, and this is what happened with Lewis and Sirotkin. The reason why Lewis wasn't penalized, and there is a statement of the FIA, is that there was this unwritten rule that when you are in an outlap, you shouldn't go really fast. That's the reason why Hamilton wasn't penalized because of the almost accident he had with Sirotkin. I still do not understand why he wasn't penalized with Kimi, But that was the reason which was given for this rotten incident.
Yeah,
So
I would agree. I thought that was a clear-cut penalty that Hamilton should have paid there. And I think because it was Williams, and because Williams have what engine?
yeah, right. No, yeah, you're right. I mean,
they chose not to make anything of it. And if they had have done, then obviously I think Lewis would have got a penalty.
I was way more pissed off by what he did with Kimi. And not because he did it with Kimi, but because I remember what they decided against Vettel and Sainz in Austria. And that was basically, well, it was worse than that, because Kimi was in his fast lap when Vettel happened with Sainz. I mean, Sainz said, well, I ruined my lap anyway, and it doesn't even have the same engine, so it wasn't even a Williams, Mercedes thing. But they penalized Vettel, and they didn't with Kimi. And I think these kind of decisions are bad for the whole race, for the whole environment, because that opens what a con can do. That I mean, it opens a whole box that I don't think you really want to open, right?
Yeah, well, we know that Formula One teams will bend the rules to their absolute limit. And so any leeway given means bendable rules, and the FIA normally chop these things down as hard as they can because they know that teams will try and take advantage. I guarantee you, the same situation will happen next season.
Right. No, and I agree with you. That's why I said at the beginning that I think the FIA made a very poor job in Brazil, because they made. It's not even that they made wrong decisions, but they didn't make any decisions, which it's even worse. Because you can take a decision which is wrong, but it's a decision, right? But if you don't make any decision, now it's it's the Far West. It's guns and horses, and let's raid the bank, right? Because nobody. I mean, the cops are not there.
Yeah, it is like that. Generally, it is supposed to be like that in Formula One. They will push the limit, right?
Yes,
and we know the teams will run illegal devices and car parts as long as they can get. I think they can get away with it. So, No,
I agree. No, but then we are in total agreement here.
Indeed.
But because of that this is going to happen, when there is something which is in your fucking face, you should react in a more decisive way. And again, it's okay if you make the wrong decision, but make a decision. It's the same thing with the rims and Mercedes. You got to make a decision. It can't be. I mean, I think in Mexico they asked again, and they said we don't have the stewards, that are able to, to examine the things. So we will, refer to the emails that were sent 15 days ago. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, the whole thing doesn't make sense to me, Fabio, because the stewards at Mexico said it would be all right to run the device. So that not just the stewards had said it, the FIA had said yes, the stewards had said yes. Okay, so something is going on here that we're not being told about. That's it's huge suspicion, right? Is that actually both Ferrari and Mercedes have been running some kind of illegal, or potentially not illegal, but potentially illegal devices. And in fact, they've both had to take them off the cars. And I would say that's why it seems to me that the top two teams have stepped back rather than Red Bull stepping up. So that would be my
maybe. So at the end of it, we can say that nobody made formal protest, but at the end of the season, looking at the season as a whole, maybe, just maybe, the one which were more damaged it wasn't Mercedes, it wasn't Ferrari, but it was Red Bull. Because right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because they didn't need to run that device. That device could not have helped them. Cooling the tires more would not have helped Red Bull. Obviously, they needed to try and work the car harder, which is generally the way it works, right? I mean, Red Bulls are known to be very soft and have soft setups. As a result, their tire wear is considerably less. I think we'll find out in future years, presumably. exactly what the situation was and why Mercedes decided not to run a blown tyre when clearly they have such an advantage running it. It doesn't make sense for them not to run it unless they knew it would be deemed illegal.
Yeah, no, I think they did. I think they you know, they had such an advantage that they said, okay, we're not running with those so that we can shut up any any talks and stuff like that. But the damage was, well, if it was illegal, they already exploited that hole, and actually there were many holes to explore. So yeah. And by the way, you said before, you're kind of right that drivers cannot fight for shit. There were a couple of exceptions. I remember Piquet and Salazar. I think it was in Monza.
Was it Monza or San Marino?
Yeah.
No, Monza.
Yeah. And well, of course, the one we all remember, Schumi and Coulthard. Yeah.
Well, the one was Ralph Schumacher. That was my favorite. Ralph Schumacher's first race or something like that. I can't remember. I think it was Germany.
Yeah.
He stormed into, and again, I think it was Coulthard. I could well be wrong because of the Schumacher thing. But he stormed into the pits, and all you could hear, you couldn't see it, but you could hear it on live radio.
Yeah.
All you could hear was Ralph Schumacher swearing in English badly. Oh, it was the funniest thing. In live, to billions of people around the world. Oh dear! And the very first words I heard of Ralph Schumacher was, "You bloody idiot! What a shit!"
Which was what Max Verstappen said about Ocon, just when he got out of the car. Yeah, I would have won the race if it was that because of that idiot, And the other funny thing was on the in lap after the race was over, the team radio of Max saying that don't let me meet that guy in the
and then he went looking for it.
Yeah.
Max, you don't get it, dude. I put this one down to Max. I'm glad. If saying what Max says about not getting out the way when people are passing him, that's a red. Then Ocon's done exactly the right thing, right? Because he said, "No, I don't care. If I'm passing you, you need to get out the way." Right, and that's all Max has been saying for the last God knows how many races. So I see this as the FIA made a mistake. Number one, and then number two, Max needs to throw a slightly thicker spin because he's going to. If he's always going to be given the benefit of the doubt.
Well, Verstappen is on a roll on these last races. I think he in the last 5 races he has an average of 17 points per race, which is fucking insane.
Well, not really considering the tire situation.
Well, okay, scratch the tire situation. I mean, the guy is on the roll, right? So is pumped to the max.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. His dad was never great at making these decisions either. Just to put that in perspective. But
and, let's be fair. If they were geniuses, they would not be racing F1 cars, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Probably not. They'd probably find a more I don't know if there is a more lucrative series, but there
are way more lucrative ways to make money without risking your life every weekend. So
Anyway, moving on then. So I think this bodes quite well for next year. What the situation is with this front end design or the blown wheels, or I don't know what the situation really is. But if next year we've got a repeat of this situation where the cars are hobbled and crippled by track conditions because the tires just aren't up to the cars, then I'll be for one very disappointed. In a sense, it doesn't matter because it means Red Bull will be competitive, so we will at least have 3 teams. But I will feel for Ferrari next year if the situation remains the same, because it does appear to me that they were the ones that have paid the heaviest price this year for these rule changes. And I, for one, don't like that. Going back over, I've recently been over, the previous World Championships, and I happened to go back to the early 2000s, and I recognised that Ferrari invested a hell of a lot into the modern F1 sport and the way it is, and have had very little return for it. So,
Yeah.
other than the whatever it is, 70 million a year, where 100 million a year, yeah.
I don't know about next year. I think it's going to be quite interesting. I agree with what you said about Ferrari. They got a lot less than what they invested in these years. But in a way, what I think they've showed is that, especially in the last 2 years, they've showed to have a very competent technical background. Some engineers have, it seems to me they really know what they're doing. So with a drastic change in, like the one next year, well, I wouldn't say it's a clean slate for everybody, but it's kind of a newish start. So I think that they have the human factor to put down a good project. And that might help, to take down a little bit of the advantage that Mercedes has with the current platform, because it's kind of new for everybody. There is also another couple of things I want to say before giving back to you, is that I'm starting. Well, okay, let me say, I'll leave that for the end, because that will probably surprise you. I think that Sauber is going to be a very interesting car next year. Again, for the same reasons. There are some good technicians which went from Ferrari to Sauber, and some of them, I think, they made a very huge mistake in leaving them. Like, I'm talking about Furbato, which is a very good engineer, which went to Sauber, and the car has been very consistent these last races. And the other thing I'm slightly reconsidering is the Honda thing. I am starting to think that engine might not be that shite next year. So I know that I laughed when 2 races ago they said, no, they were competing for the championship, and I made the obvious joke that what Ron Dennis said in McLaren, but I'm starting to reconsider that.
Okay. I'm not. I'm less considering it. I think the performance of the Toro Rosso in the last few races have shown that they would have suffered the same way Mercedes and Ferrari have, and in fact, that their chassis design isn't strong enough, and nor will be strong enough for next year. My feeling is that, to be honest, when this year especially, Sauber have been blessed with a driver for which Ferrari wanted to support, and therefore they've probably had a few little tweaks and engine settings available to them that maybe Haas haven't. That would be my suspicion. In fact, that it's Ferrari supporting Leclerc that has really given that Sauber an extra tweak to get it higher up in the midfield than it should be, really. But we'll see next year whether that continues. I believe that they'll have the Ferrari. I assume they'll be given the Ferrari suspension, at least the rear suspension, if not the front end. Is that really going to help them this much? Because the Ferrari still has been suffering with tyre wear. I don't know whether that'll help them next year. I suspect it won't. In fact, it will be Red Bull that really take the advantage, simply because they can design a chassis which is softer on tyres than anybody else. But again, that's just my suspicion. So for the reason, I don't think it'll be because the Honda is very good that Red Bull have a competitive car next year. I think it'll be because their chassis design is so superior. But we'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing I said, well, the thing I said about the Sauber, of course, I was referring to the championship of the others, right? I mean,
yeah. That's what I was as well. Yeah.
and as far as Red Bull, the reason why I'm slightly changing my mind about the Honda engine is because I think that I thought about it for a while, but I think that this year my feeling, and there's also some talks in the paddock and stuff like that, but my feeling is that with Toro Rosso, Honda has done what they were not allowed to do with McLaren. McLaren was pushing for results, and rightly so, I would say, because after 3 years they had none. But I think that with Toro Rosso, Honda had the chance to actually made a proper development program.
Mm.
And this is, again, it's my feeling. I might be totally wrong, but I think that because of that reason, they might have prepared the next year's power unit, the whole engine, in a better way than they had a chance to do with McLaren. That is my gut feeling,
No,
But
I completely agree with that. Maybe for different reasons. I think the reason they've been allowed to develop is more to do with the other manufacturers allowing Honda to develop the engine mid-season, whereas this year's and with McLaren, they weren't allowed to do that. They weren't allowed to bring updates to the engine more than a certain number in a year because of this point situation that they had.
yes,
That was thrown out just after McLaren signed away the Honda engine. That was miraculously signed out. So they've been allowed unlimited development this year, and I think that's really what's brought them into the team. And I don't think it'll be enough either. I think Mercedes and Ferrari realise that Honda can't get it together in the same way because of the electronic side of the car, the Earth side of the car. Honda may be able to develop a very powerful engine, of course they can, but whether they can develop the same ERS package that Ferrari and Mercedes have got, that's another thing altogether. So I think, if anything, that's where the Red Bull will not be quite so good. Whether Red Bull themselves will be allowed to tweak the Honda engine in terms of making it more compatible with their system of energy recovery, I don't know. I suspect they won't be. And in fact, we will get to next year and find the Honda as fourth or fifth best team. But only my suspicion.
We'll see. I mean, we just hope. I just hope that you're wrong, not because I want you to be wrong, but because it would mean that if you're wrong, we'll have something like a freeway race, But yeah, we'll see. I understand your point, and it kind of makes sense. Again, what I was just saying is just a gut feeling. I really have no data or nothing solid to build on that feeling.
Likewise. I'm just making a pure guess at this point. It seems my experience in Formula One tells me that people don't get let in quite so easily to the big club, to the big boys teams, and I don't think Red Bull will be allowed in even. Mainly. Yeah, we'll see anyway. We'll see how that goes next year, and I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. I think they're going to have to deal with this blistering problem for next year. It's in Pirelli's interest to do that.
Oh, they're going to next year. They're going to run all the tires. They're going to be the 0.4 millimeters thinner tires.
Yeah, and hopefully that will help us somewhat.
Yeah.
We shall see. I think that's right. I don't know what I was going to say. I had another point I was making, but I just can't remember what it was. I think it's in Ferrari's very good to stop that happening, and that will only benefit the top two teams. It's not going to benefit Red Bull the same way. So, and also it'll benefit the lower teams in terms of those that have slightly harder working chassis. So again, I think it will change the season and how that's perceived, and only against Red Bull, unfortunately. But we shall see. They managed to sort something out, so that will be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so well done to Lewis, a legend, uh, 5 times world champion. Unbelievable, really. Even I didn't think that this was going to happen so soon when he signed for Mercedes. I knew he would win titles, but not this many. So congratulations, Lewis. It was what I consider to be one of the most perfect seasons you've driven, considering the challenges that the car has displayed. And yeah, I'm very proud of Lewis this year. I really am. So, there we go. That's my point.
Yeah.
Sebastian, well, I I replayed the race where he had his first win, and it was very funny. He got over the line, and they went, "You won, well done," and he cried. So yeah, um, that seems the repeating thing. Maybe Seb isn't quite as robust in emotionally as the others, and I think that will make him suffer next year. So I think Leclerc's in for a real shout. I really do. Anything you'd like to finish up with?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this year. It's been wonderful. We've got one race less, Abu Dhabi, I believe, 2 weeks' time, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this will just be the icing on the cake. I think we're going to have an exciting race because nobody's got anything to lose, and there are enough drivers changing teams that are going to want to race the balls off the rest of these cars. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this.
Just one last thing. I just remember something I want to say. I don't know if you saw the interview that Kimi Raikkonen gave this week.
I haven't, no.
It's bloody amazing. It's on the F1 channel on YouTube, and
Okay.
it's brilliant. And well, I'm going to spoil it to you a little bit, but there is a part where the interviewer tells him, yeah, next year I'm going to go to Sauber and blah blah blah, and he says, and he asks him something on the line like, "Do you think you're gonna regain some of the passion, and stuff like that?" And Kimi says, "No, I no, because I don't think." It says something like, "Well, I think I never had, passion. So you can only get something that you lost, but I never had it. So yeah, it is. But you gotta watch it because it is fucking brilliant. The
Yeah.
guy.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you. I'll ask you to put that in the link below.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean, when you think of someone says, okay, how can I describe someone not giving a fuck? That's Kimi Raikkonen. It's brilliant.
yeah, absolutely. He is a star, and
Yes.
yeah, I'm glad he stayed in Formula One for the next 2 years because it will be a dull grid without him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching. It's been a great show and a really great year. Looking forward to the last race, of course. Congratulations to Lewis. Congratulations to Mercedes for being world champions. And yeah, let's just bring on 2019 and let's hope that Ferrari can get their stuff together to give their drivers the car which will be more reliable, because that seems to me the target weakness of the Ferrari this year, and they usually are not like that. It's completely the other way. So I've been quite shocked at how this year's gone, and I think Lewis didn't have the best car, and that makes this championship doubly worthwhile. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you, Fabio. And I guess